Okay, so it looks like everyone is connected. Today is Thursday, December 12th, 2024. It is 4:03 or 16:03 p.m. and we are calling the meeting to order for the Board of Directors, Windham School District. We are going to start off with public comment, and I want to be very clear that public comment and correspondence are not Q&A sessions. A public comment is the time for the public to make their comment. There will be a limit to 3 minutes per comment directed to the school board chair, and we will maintain order and decorum. So 1 response per agenda item preferred, and if you can use your camera when possible. If you're on Zoom, that's very helpful because it helps with the editing when they go to identify in the recording who's speaking, that your name is clear and identified appropriately. So with that, I'm going to go into public comment. And before we take on, people from the public, I also want to talk about the, here you go, Howie. The challenges that we've been facing in the world and how difficult of a time of year it is for a lot of folks. I'm very proud of this board and our ability to move forward in kindness with everything that we're doing. And I would just respect and ask that respect from others, that as we go forward with meetings, that we can do so with a level of kindness. You can have strong opinions, but it doesn't have to be in any type of a derogatory way that is out to just cause harm versus making points. So let's just be clear on that. And so we will go into public comment. Is there anybody here? We have quite a few in the audience. Anybody in the audience have a public comment?
So I see Maureen Bell.
Maureen Bell. Go ahead, Maureen.
Hi, Abby, I just have a quick question regarding the building rental agreement. In our last meeting, we discussed it, and I asked you to send me a copy of your current building agreement, rental agreement. And just yesterday.
That's under correspondence. So if you have a comment, again, it's not question and answer time, but you can make a comment. So I don't want to interrupt, but we will be discussing that under correspondence.
I had no way of knowing that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Ginny Crittenden.
Thank you. I just want to say how I've been involved in this historical society and having a great time with it. We're just, we're a bunch of crazy, silly people that go through all these old pictures and stuff, but we really appreciate the space that we've had. And every day Susan Persa comes up with new pictures and new things that people give her from their families. So it's just,
that's awesome.
Thank you very much.
So we're seeing the historical society grow here in Windham, and that's awesome. Yep. So cool beans. Thank you very, very much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
No one's hand is up.
Let these in.
Sally?
I just want to follow up on what Ginny said, and that it was a really nice gathering. There were a lot of people here that were really interested in what the Historical Society had put together, and we did a little square dancing afterwards. It wasn't a very long dance, but I know there's interest in more interest in doing some square dancing. So it's just nice to see this place with being used.
Excellent.
I wish I could have gone, but
I
heard it was a good time.
Yes.
Oh, Cecilia?
Hi. Yep. Cecilia Dietrich. I just want to thank the school board members. You guys are doing a wonderful job. I really appreciate the time that you put into the work that you do, and I can tell that all of you really have the best interests of the community at heart. I've lived in a number of different communities, and I'm an educator, so I understand what goes on in your work, and I appreciate your time very much. I also really appreciate being the next door neighbor to the school here. I really like to see this building being used for community events and as a way to help us maintain our sense of community. I know we have the wonderful meeting house, which is also a great place to gather, but it's great to have this place as well. So I thank you for your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia.
Abby,
Yes.
just a point of clarification. If we want to say something about the correspondence, will we be able to, or should that be said ahead of time? The correspondence from, or is the thing from Russ coming up?
So that's going to be received under correspondence, yes. But I think my understanding, and from what I've seen, I know Daniel's going to want to provide some background information on that, and I think that that's totally appropriate for the board to, speak to the correspondence. However, it's not the time for questions and answers regarding correspondence. So if the public has concerns about the documentation, that's unless the board calls upon somebody to say, I want to hear what you have to say. It's just the opportunity for the board to share the correspondence that we've received. And we can put on a future agenda item to have discussion further, should that be decided. So does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Well, we'll be getting to it when we drafted the agenda. When we drafted the agenda, that particular correspondence hadn't come in,
I see.
or it was early days. So
It won't really be discussed tonight.
no, it will be, but it just wasn't on the correspondent list.
Was it like we didn't have the correspondence typed out because some of it didn't take place until after the agenda had already been created and posted. So
Yeah, and just as information, the correspondence that Mac is referring to is located under the SU's Google Drive. So if you go into reports, you can get to all the board documents. This is true for every meeting that we do. So let's make sure everyone has full access.
okay, so Sally.
Yeah, Sally Newton, I don't think I identified myself before. I also wanted to say that I think the board is doing a wonderful job. Having worked here for years and worked with a lot of boards, they've all been good, but I've been really impressed with the communication. I've never experienced a regular newsletter going out explaining what the board is working on, and I think you guys have done an excellent job with that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We do have 2 people adding to mine.
Okay, and I would ask that you remain muted until you are called upon, okay? So if you have your speaker on and you're unmuted, it can cause interference in the meeting. So whose hand do we have
So
up here?
Ancha, I think, was up first.
Antia, go ahead.
I wanted to thank you for letting me speak. I wanted to thank you guys all very much as well. Abby, Daniel, Howie, I'm so grateful that you guys are there. All the work you do. I've was on the school board for many years, and I know what a tough job it is. But thank you so much for all you've done and for letting this building right now be there for the community. I was at that historical event and very much enjoyed it. So thanks again.
Thank you, Antia.
Thank you, Ancha.
Anybody else for
Michael.
public comment?
Michael Pelton was next, and then
Michael Pelton?
I'm not sure what this name is.
Sorry. I just wanted to let you folks know that there's several people that are unidentified, so that might be challenging when you come to doing your minutes. And the other thing is that it sounds like the correspondence might be a topic of discussion, and I don't know if it's something that the board might want to consider when you get to that point, whether you want to add it to the agenda. Thanks.
I agree with that.
Thank you.
And then Windham, the little town where anything goes as long as nobody knows. Can you state your name so I can rename you?
Yeah, it's Russell Cumming.
Oh, there we go. Well, hey, Russell.
Hi. I just want to say that it's hard for us that are on Zoom to hear everyone that's speaking. If there's some way in which the volume could be turned up, that would be appreciated. And Dan, if you want me to answer the questions you asked me in the email, I can do it now, or we can wait until correspondence.
So we'll get to correspondence and then we'll, what next is actually some of the changes to the agenda. What I think we'll do is do correspondence and then do changes to the agenda, Russ. And if it's decided that we want to add it as an agenda item, to discuss it further on, then we can do that. But the correspondence is really just to highlight the correspondence. So just gotta go from there. Does that make sense? So we'll let you know.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. So anyone else for public comment?
I think that's it.
Okay, so we will move on to correspondence. So there's quite a few that we have here. Just make sure I don't forget to do that. So one I want to start off with is there was from the, let me pull out the card. We received a card.
Oh, absolutely.
So to the Windham School Board, thank you for the use of your beautiful space, Vermont Worker Center, with a bunch of signatures from people. And they also gave a donation of some money that we will be counting at some point. And I didn't pull it out because I just saw this and I didn't want to.
This might be a good question for Heidi or the SU. So the Worker Center over the weekend had an event. They went out canvassing in Londonderry and Jamaica. Two topics that they were interested in is healthcare for all, statewide, and the consolidation or possible closure of Grace Cottage. So those are two issues that they're working through, and they met and then left to go canvass from there. And Ellen and Karen and Gary and Kia and others at the Workers Center passed off that nice note and a little bit of cash for the space, which was really nice. Which kind of brings me to, what do I do with this cash?
If you give it to me, it will be entered as miscellaneous revenue and we'll get it deposited into your account.
There you go. Perfect.
Count it in
Awesome.
front of me so we can write down.
Oh, sure.
And it'll
Well,
be,
can we do that maybe at the end
Sure.
before, and then
We can do
we'll
that, yeah.
we'll have that out of the way and perfect.
Right.
Thank you.
I just want to plug one more thing.
Sure.
If you want to hold this guy up.
Here we go.
Yeah, so they're doing on January 15th following the same thread that they were doing in Londonderry in Jamaica. They're going to be at the Vermont State House in Montpelier and advocating for healthcare rights, healthcare for all, local hospitals that are being consolidated, things of that nature. So definitely check it out if you get a chance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Healthcare is a very challenging subject, even more so these days, right? So, and there was an email from Cord that was sent, and I think that we could potentially add this down to new business and transportation, but it was regarding the condition of the bus and, information regarding whether we should replace the bus, whether, what we should be looking at for that. So, but we can add that to the transportation discussion, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it makes
Okay.
sense. Hey, Howie, did you get in?
Still trying.
Okay, yeah, do you need help? Here, let's see. Yeah, you can keep it.
Okay. And then we have,
Is that correct?
sorry, I was trying to get in so I could, I got it. Okay.
you got it?
Yes, sorry.
No, you're fine.
I just want to make sure I can get in.
So, where was I here? So I got that one moved. Maureen Bell had made a request for the rental agreement. And since we've been dealing with a lot of the challenges with the complaint that's coming through, or we'll potentially be dealing with challenges with the complaint coming through, I'm not sure, and we're going to be meeting with our attorney soon. So that will be brought up then, but at this point, I'm not sharing any documentation with anyone. And that, if that changes down the road, then we would be able to consider it. But as of this point, we're not going to be sharing that rental agreement with folks. And then Nancy Tips had sent an email with a complaint, as well as Russ with a complaint. And well, those are on the same page. There was an email I got today from Bill Casey, so let me get Bill's email.
I can put it on the screen if you want.
Oh, no, it's fine. He was not gonna be able to attend and request that the comments below be read aloud and made a part of the meeting minutes. When I first wrote about Mr. Ross' actions with the preschool, I thought he was just operating in an improper manner. Now that we have found out he was in violation of board policy, I think it's time for the board to act professionally and demand his immediate resignation from the board. I cannot understand how any member could allow business free access to the building. The taxpayers voted last June to close the school. Why hasn't this been done? There is a long-standing agreement that if the school, us closed, is to be sold to the town for $! Please do what is best for the town and the taxpayers and rid the town of further unnecessary expenses. So, and then to just speak to this, the school, Bill, we've mentioned to this you many times, is closed. There is no teaching occurring in this building. So that's happened. And then we can move on to Russ's complaint and Nancy's complaint and the club's there's complaint, or et al. Or whatever they're at now. So with that, I guess as maybe we're going to be talking about that correspondence, Russ, maybe this is a good time for you to at least share who the et al. Is. I think that was a question. Are you available?
Yeah, Dan had asked me in an email what the et al. Applied to, and I think it's pretty basic. Article number 6, when we were having our school meeting about sending students to other public schools, was 84 yes and 45 no. So you can choose 84 if you'd like to. The next item was to close the school. The vote was 64 to close it and 37 not to. So you can choose the number 64. There are about...
Russ, I'm going to stop you right there.
Okay.
You're talking about et al. That was the question.
It means and others.
Right, but who are the others is what we were asking, not about Act 6.
There are a number of individuals in town who have like feelings to mine, who do not want to have their name published because they're afraid of retribution, which has been a key element of many of the people who are in favor of the school. They blackmail people, they say things on public media and social media and stuff that is completely untrue, of which I have been the point of some of them, and there are others that have also been the point of some of them. And that's why people don't want to put their name out there. I'm willing to put my name out there and take the action because I think everything that Dan has done is not proper and not ethical. And I think that he needs to face the fact that he's using public money at the school to heat it and provide daycare systems for his child. I think that is not right, and I think he has to admit that it's not right. And he's implied he's going to pay $6,600. And as far as I know, from talking with people at the supervisory union, no money has been paid. I don't see any money or contracts signed. I don't see any kind of proof that he has a liability waiver that he's claimed in several meetings that Dave Cherry asked about last time. Where's the waiver? And he says, well, we have them, but he hasn't made them public. They should be published and part of the SCU records. Thank you.
The waivers, Russ, are private information. I know HIPAA is like a big stretch for you, but you can't just give out people's emergency contact information and stuff and make it public. So,
well, yes, you can. If there is a waiver signed, it's part of a public document with a public organization, and it needs to be published. And if you want to check with your attorney, you'll find that out.
well, we will be meeting with the attorney, but Russ, we're done. Thank you for your comment. We're going to move on, okay?
Can I say something
So,
to that?
hold on. So we're talking about Nancy Tips had a correspondence as well, wanting to know about this was an email that was sent requesting information prior to the complaint being filed. So I believe that the email that Daniel had a response to, had sent a response email to, answered the majority of those questions. But just to acknowledge that she was also in correspondence trying to find out information of hours of the childcare and if it was continuing.
Can I make a comment on Russ's
Yes,
complaint?
you may.
And especially the et al. If there is not a signed group that's with the et al. So what he's proposing in there is that there is a quasi-judicial hearing done by yourself and Howie. I would like to consider that this document, this complaint, comes from just Russ himself, without naming others. It's nebulous to say, okay, these people that voted here, these people that voted here. I'd just like to put that in consideration.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And
Okay.
let me know what you think about this as well. I actually have the program director right here, Kia. Do you think now would be a good time to perhaps address and have her tell her story towards this complaint, since that's what we're on?
Well, yes. So what I think we can do is that wrapped up the correspondence. So we can look at changes to the agenda. We would be moving into old business. So before we do that, would you like to add her to, just because she's here?
Yeah.
And then we can move into old business. So, Sue, I know you had a question about something, but
Point of order, Chair. Point of order. If no one's name was on the agenda prior to the meeting, it's against open meeting law to include them in the agenda.
Well, keep that in mind. I'd like to do that.
Well, you keep it in mind, but it's a violation of open meeting law, and you do it.
thank you. So, as people continue to interrupt, if you are not called upon, you are to remain muted, please. So, Sue, what I was saying is we're under the category of correspondence. It sounds like you may have a question. We did kind of get past public comment with that, but maybe as we...
Falls in with Russ.
Okay, so when we are going to go through into the minutes here, and when we get to, if there's a chance towards the end that we can maybe do that, but I want to kind of keep on track with this stuff. So,
Well, maybe what I have to say would help you understand what Russ is saying.
okay.
Okay, so you all know Richard works for the town, my husband. How would you, as taxpayers, feel if he's up our road and, you know, he comes in and grades our driveway? I mean, they've already maintained the grader, so, and it's already fueled up. Do you understand what you're doing, Dan?
No, it's a very, I see how you're trying to make the analogy. It's a very different analogy, but I appreciate that. So thank you, Sue. So if everyone doesn't mind, before we get into old business, Kia will speak. Is there any other changes to the agenda that anyone would like to make? I know we're going to add Cord's email down to transportation.
I just wanted to quickly, Bob, did you have a question before Kia were to speak?
Yeah, just related to the changes to the agenda. Unfortunately, I have another thing at 5 o'clock I'm going to have to do. So just want you guys to be aware that you have me until 5 today.
Okay, thank you.
With that, do you want us to move you up? Maybe have Kia, then you do your report so you aren't on a time crunch, Bob?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, that's whatever you guys want to do. I just wanted you to know.
Okay, so we'll make that change. So we'll kind of be jumping all over the place. And Bob, okay. All right, so Kia, you want to have the floor?
Want to speak to the situation. I read the article in the Commons. Dan did not ask me to come speak. I wanted to come speak on it myself. Just to clarify any misconceptions, I'll kind of explain what I've been doing here really briefly. I figure if someone wants to ask me questions, they can. So I've been doing childcare for a while. I watched Dan's daughter, and a number of other children. And in this space, I watched not only Dan's daughter, but a number of other kids from other families who had approached me. As per Vermont state law, since I was not licensed, I did not watch more than, I didn't watch for more than 2 families at a time. So that's perfectly legal. I've talked to the state about that. So Dan's daughter was by no means the only child in this space who I was, educating and taking care of. Dan paid me just like every other family. He paid me exactly what all the others paid me. And I was pursuing licensure. I have an LLC. Unfortunately, due to some personal family issues, I have decided not to go ahead with the daycare in this space. That has nothing to do with this situation. I've just, we've had a recent, I don't need to get into that, but some personal issues. So I will no longer be doing that in this space, but I was working on all of the paperwork to get licensed to start a daycare, because I was told from multiple people that there's not enough childcare in the area. So that was my intention with this space. That's what happened. If anyone has any clarifying questions, I can answer.
I would just like to say thank you, because one of the things that was comforting for me too is just by you being in the building, there wasn't a change in the heat. There wasn't a change in anything that with you being in the building was operating the way that it would, other than you might have been able to get some water to run through the drains and flush a toilet from time to time versus, hoping that kind of stuff could happen when other people are coming through only, once a week. So, seeing the kiddos, you do a fabulous job. It's very sad to see that it's not gonna be able to come to fruition as we had hoped, but we do appreciate you and the time that you've put in and trying to make that an option for folks here in our community. So big thank you to you. We do appreciate you.
Well, thank you guys. Using this space was really great. You can see some of our pictures that we worked on behind. That's the story. And, I know that down in Jamaica, they're actually working also on starting a daycare in their school.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a crazy idea. Down the line, if there was public support, I'd love to look at it again. But, that really depends on what folks want.
Can you say how many months you've been here doing that?
I've been doing it since July, August? I think August.
August, yeah, like a couple weeks into August.
Yeah, August.
So the point isn't about daycares, the building wasn't being paid for the use.
Yeah, and that's typical of other programming that we have here. There's plenty of other programming that others have talked about, such as the Historical Society, Workers Center. They were generous to give us some money, but we don't extend a rental contract to everyone that uses the space. And going back to Abby's point, a lot of these costs are fixed. So insurance, there was no change to that. Heating, it's not even controlled within the building. It's set, I believe, Bob, right? It's set remotely. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's managed. It is. I mean, I think during the warmer months, it obviously isn't on, so there wouldn't have been any excess heat. If there was something operating throughout the winter and you needed it up at a higher level, I believe it's in like an occupied mode, which keeps it a little bit lower than normal to save some money on heat. But if you were going to use it, or it was going to be used on a regular basis, the heat would be turned up. There would be some additional cost to that, but I don't think because of the months that we're talking about, the daycare was there probably wasn't any additional heat used.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sally?
I just want to say it was so nice to come in here and see this room being used. This was my classroom. And
it's a wonderful classroom.
yeah, and this space is built for kids. So if we're not going to have a public school here, there's no reason why you can't do some sort of a private thing. And I think the fact that the school board is not having a rental agreement and charging people right now, part of it is because they want to encourage getting this started. It's how you get things started is you support or people that want to do things by, helping them out financially, because it's hard to get something like that started.
Yeah, and and that's something I want to talk towards and I've tried to be consistent throughout the months about this, but I could definitely add more communication around this. So Kia mentioned that she can only have up to 2 families. Well, having up to 2 families, even if there's multiple kids in one family, it's not enough fees to cover the rent. And so the idea was that a rental agreement will be extended when licensure happens, because that way Kia can get up to scale and have multiple families pass the 2 and be able to collect enough money to earn a wage. And so that's, to Sally's point, that's a startup of a business that was strictly necessary. Otherwise, it ran a lot like other programming that we had here. Here's insurance waiver, and sign it, make sure that the board is okay with it, make sure that we communicate with the public about it. And Kia, was there anything you wanted to add?
I was just gonna say that exactly, that the idea was, while I only had, really at most in here, I only ever had 4 kids. And I was trying to, make childcare affordable, but the agreement was that once I got licensed, I would start paying full rent for the space. And unfortunately, again, due to unforeseen personal conflict, that has not happened, and that's why, I will no longer be using the space.
And just speaking a little more to it, so in October and November, I had to take off for my own personal reasons. But prior to that, in July, August, September, every month, along with school board updates, I've tried to keep everyone updated on what we're doing here. And not just with the daycare, because going back to it, the heating is a binary. It's whether or not that the building is being utilized. And with or without the daycare, there have been other events, other groups here that have utilized the space, that are giving us cards, that have spoken up tonight. And I'd like to see that continued. And furthermore, I'm proud of every one of the programs. Kia decided not to continue, but the way it benefits the town is it shows that it can work. It can work past public education to have a program like that here. And furthermore, we now know the steps of what that looks like. And so if someone else wanted to pick up that baton, the Kia is trailblaze, then we can. And I deeply appreciate you, Kia. And you're an awesome person, and thank you.
I think we have 2 hands raised in Zoom land. Were these questions for Kia? Bridget, is that you? Bridget Blanchard?
Not specifically, but partially.
Okay.
Okay, so we've been asking about this daycare for like the past 3 months, and just now we're hearing more about it, and it's just kind of weird to me, because like I have a 4-year-old, and there's other people in this community that have small children, but it seems like the kids were kind of cherry picked to go to this. So that is kind of just a strange thing that I've been thinking since the beginning. And also, I really wish you guys would move these meetings so they aren't at 4 p.m. because you would have parents coming to these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget.
I'm going to talk about the last comment first. I've heard that comment too, Bridget. I think it's worthwhile to consider changing the time to be more accommodating. I mean, the push and pull of this is that you move the meeting on one side, it captures more people. And then you move it to another side, it captures more people, but leaves out other people. But I think it's a worthwhile discussion. What is the most optimal timing for our meetings? The other thing, and maybe Kia, do you want to comment on? Have you had any requests that you've turned down, or anything that just speaking to the cherry picking?
Yeah. So I did not make the sign-ups super widespread publicly, just because, unfortunately, again, without the licensure, which I was working on getting but did not have at the time, legally I was only allowed to watch children of no more than 2 families. And so I already had families, a number of families, that I do private childcare for. And really my dream was to say, okay, let me take those kids that I already know, who are already comfortable with me, and I would love to start a daycare program in the area so that I can take on more and more families. Unfortunately, again, as I've been working on that paperwork for the last few months, it's an inordinate amount of paperwork if you want to do anything with childcare, which makes a lot of sense. So, I've been taking my time with it. And again, just due to unforeseen circumstances with, personal life, I'm unable to continue with that right now. But that was the reasoning behind, which families were included. It was simply kids who already knew me, and who were already comfortable with me. So hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you.
And Crystal Corview, is that your hand? Did you have a question for Kia?
I don't have a question for Kia. I think it's unfortunate that some community members have been portrayed as these evil people who wanted to squash this daycare. The issue at hand was there is a difference in a municipal tax and an education tax. If the building was owned by the town, that tax would be spread out to all of Windham, not just the residents. So it's not fair to make it look like we are horrible people that want transparency for these situations, because that is just not the case.
Chris, I'm not sure what you're talking towards, but in terms of making you out to be that way, but we've also been very consistent about we're not holding on to the building. It's not in our next proposed budget. We're talking to the town, and we're going to have more updates in this meeting. So I want to make sure that everyone knows that, this was an interim step. This is an interim step of we have a building, we just closed our public education. Can we use this building?
Okay, I think we're good. So I think, Kia, again, thank you very much. We appreciate you, and we can move on to Bob for the superintendent report. You have the floor, sir.
All right, thank you. We'll keep it very brief. You have my cabinet report that went out. Basically just to highlight, you guys are looking at budgets. This is what's happening right now. That's why Heidi's there today. You guys there's some new information from the state that's come out. She'll be highlighting that for you, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I will tell you that today, as part of the Listen and Learn tour for the Agency of Education, they extended their work to students. And there was they had a component happen at Leland and Gray. It was supposed to say for students for the Listen and Learn tour through a program, through a vendor called Up With Learning, which Leland and Gray's been working with. So it was kind of the first one in the area for sure at the high school level to include students in that Listen and Learn tour for the AOE. So that's pretty exciting stuff. Other than that, I think in my report, I highlighted that I finished up my certificate in Ed Finance through Georgetown, and it's been a very interesting course and gets into a lot of the funding mechanisms, and it's made me appreciate, for one, how unusual Vermont's funding formula is compared to other states, and how we do it, and also what the impact is specifically for districts that are non-operating and paying entirely tuition like yours. It's yet again a very unusual setup. So just coming to appreciate more of that as I am in halfway through my second year now. And I think that is really all I have. I won't take up much of your time because I know you have a lot of other stuff to get through. But thank you.
Thank you. Would you be able to talk about the cyber threat that happened?
Well, at this point, I could, if the board wanted to have an executive session for a legal update, the SU, I was working with an attorney team. So I think the best thing would be to do that in an executive session for a legal update. Is probably the best way to approach that. You guys don't have any employees per se, so it doesn't really impact Windham as a district. But if you want to set up an executive session to do a legal update, I could certainly update you on that process and what it was like, the SU going through that.
So we are in the works of scheduling an executive special meeting, executive session with the attorney for legal stuff. So would you want to be interested in that portion, some of that to explain during that time?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll keep you in the loop. Now, do you have an out of office reply? Are you going on vacation or just coming back?
No, just today. I'm just out of the office today.
Oh, okay. All right. So, well, we'll keep you in the loop with that. I was thinking it would be tomorrow, but we don't get anything warned, so it will not be tomorrow.
Okay.
And any other questions for the superintendent? Crystal, I can't see if that's your hand up again or still up.
Yes, it is.
Okay, go ahead, Crystal.
Bob, I got your email. Thank you. Do you have a recommendation for something special to follow to keep an eye on the 4-year-olds and the possible mandated pre-K?
Yeah, so that was what Crystal had emailed me about, a report that just came out in the media about a legislative report around the potential for a mandatory 4-year-old pre-K, public pre-K, and was asking what implications would there be, and could I talk about that tonight? And I just responded and told her that it was really just a report that had come out. The legislature would have to take action before that would take effect for anything. If they did take effect for it, it would become basically, in essence, part of how you do the rest of your elementary schooling. If a full day of 4-year-old pre-K was required, you would be required to pay tuition for that, minus the 10 hours that you get back from the state. But until such time that the state has passed a law to do that, there's no steps to take in the meantime. It's sort of a off-on switch that would happen once the legislation, if it does get passed, which is an if, and then if it does, when it would take effect. So I hope that answers what you're looking at, Crystal.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Bob? Okay, and I see we have Kathy Edgerly on. Kathy, I know your time on here today is limited as well. We have building update coming up, but I also don't want to lose you. Would you be able to speak a little bit on what's going on with the building?
Sure.
Thank you.
Apologies to people that were in the waiting room. It doesn't always tell me. So, anyways, go ahead, Kathy.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Yep. So we have secured a commitment from Stevens and Associates and the BDCC, that's the Brattleboro Development Corporation, to do a study with us this January and February. So we might do a little prep work, but before Christmas and New Year's, I don't foresee a whole lot happening. The plan would be to have 3 public meetings in January, in January, maybe the first week or second week of February, the 3rd meeting. And then the deliverable for the project would be a matrix of information, including costs and assessment, so that the town can make a decision about whether or not they wish to acquire the school building. And if they do, what they might anticipate different costs to be depending on what they decided to do with it. And we also have a resource from the BDCC, who's an expert in real estate services, and his contribution will be part of that matrix. And I think I can answer any questions. We were trying to pin down the dates, sort of apropos to what Crystal was saying, or I guess it wasn't Crystal, someone else, about the times of the meetings. What we're going to try to do is to have one public meeting in the daytime, have one public meeting in the nighttime, so that if you can't make one, you could make the other. they'll probably both be on Zoom as well. They would be hybrid, and they would be designed to elicit as much public comment and public ideas as possible. Then Stevens Associates would take those, sort of group them into buckets, like one could imagine educational uses, recreational uses, housing uses, whatever they would be, and categorize them and put some dollars and cents to them, as well as then have a review by the lawyer and a real estate person.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kathy.
Yeah, you're a rock star, Kathy.
We appreciate
Thank
you. My goodness.
No, not at all. But if there's any questions or anybody, what I was trying to say was we were trying to pin down those dates so that we could get them in the news and notes. But I just don't think we have enough time to be accurate. So there will be something in the news and notes, and it will be a link to the website. And on the website for the town, we will post the meetings. And we may even try to do some kind of a interactive survey with people so that if you couldn't get to any of the meetings, you still would have a way to have your voice heard and your ideas collected.
That's wonderful.
Awesome.
Yeah, right? Well, clapping for Kathy. Thank you so much, Kathy. Okay. So now jumping back up, is there anything else? You think you're good, Kathy?
I think I'm good. If anybody has any questions, if not, yes, excellent. Thank you for letting me meet my time commitment.
Yeah. Appreciate you for making time to be here. So
Thank you, Kathy.
and so moving back on, we are going to approve minutes of 6/8/24, 8/15/24, 9/19/24, and 10/24/24. So I move to approve those minutes.
Second.
Seconded by Howie. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now the meeting minutes that you had sent, I couldn't open it was like
File.
yeah, I don't know what it like spit out a whole bunch of almost like code, so I couldn't I'd have to fiddle with it more and try to figure that out. But I know that they are done.
Okay.
So if
And they're linked in on the SU website.
oh, perfect. So we can get that approved if they're on the website. So that's even better. If we are able to.
They're on which website?
You have not been called on. Okay.
Point of order.
Is he muted?
I didn't find them either, and I looked this afternoon.
Okay, so
All right, maybe we should check.
we will double
Thank you.
check with WCSU website to see if it is there. That is where it would be located. And I know that the video is there. I did verify that the video is there from BCTV. But we will be shortly having another special meeting coming up here with an executive session, and it was going to be just the executive session, but we could probably throw in to the approval of those minutes for that time. That moves on to
My mistake. Yeah, I don't see them. So
okay, so they're not on SU.
yeah, they're not quite posted.
Okay,
yet.
so we'll get that.
Yeah, let's strike those off.
So
Thank you.
so the motion is for June, August, September, and October for those dates and those minutes. We had a second and discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so those minutes passed. We will get November's done. Meredith Block for minutes takers. So as everyone's well aware, this has been a major challenge for our board.
Point of order.
What is the point of order, Russ?
Howard was not at the meetings and that you're voting on. He was not on the meeting on the 8th of June. He wasn't on August 15th or September 19th, so he can't vote on the meetings. You have to be present and attend the meeting to be able to approve it, and he wasn't. Point of order.
Okay.
State law.
And I will ask you again, this is the last time, Russ. You do not interject. You wait to be called on. Is that understood?
Yes, but if I want a point of order, I need to be recognized.
Okay. So motion passes. Moving on to financials. And this is Pay order number 7.
Right, so back to approving Meredith or that discussion.
Oh, I got sidetracked with the interruptions there. Meredith Block. So she is interested in being the minutes taker. In correspondence with her, just was that we could make a motion if those would like on the board to approve of her being the minute taker going forward. She does other school boards locally as well. So I would move to motion for Meredith Block to become our minute taker. Is there a second? Okay, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. So that will be taken care of. I'm going to be in connection with Meredith. The minutes for today. Will you be able to get the meeting for today?
I'll
Doug?
take them off the. I'll take them off the Google. The YouTube.
The BCTV.
Yeah, right. BCTV has a computer generated
like transcript.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's as far as I'm concerned. That's the minutes. That's as good as you're gonna get out of me. I'm gonna copy and paste those. And
Okay. So
I'm gonna upload that to the site.
So we can.
Awesome.
We'll look at those for that last meeting and for this meeting, but then going forward, we'll be in communication with Meredith, and she will be the minute taker going forward. So proving financials. So there was number 7, pay order number 7 in the amount of
$118,196.23.
Okay.
And that was mostly the tuition, right?
There was a big chunk for tuition.
That's
yes,
right. Okay.
100,000.
So I move to approve pay order number 7, the amount of $118,196.23. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that carries. All right, and now the second look at the fiscal year 26 budget. You have the floor, Heidi.
Oh, thank you. I'm wondering if I can share the tax
Yes,
stuff.
I can make you co-host.
Okay.
1 second.
Yep. I'm not great at this either, so. This packet.
All right, make co-host. Here we go. So you should have the ability now to share screen.
Oops. Shoot. Just have to make it bigger. Share screen.
Let's see if it works. There we go.
Got it?
Yep.
If I switch to the calculator, can you see that too? Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, got it. So at the last meeting, I did speak a little bit about the budget. I don't know if you'd like me to go back over it. Again, a brief summary is that all building costs were taken out of this preliminary budget, so that the main costs are tuition. I have calculated for, let's put this up.
And
I've calculated for a total of 17 students in elementary and 3 pre-K.
Okay.
Going forward for next year, which is very similar to this year. There's a couple that are moving on into middle school, but there are potentially a couple that'll be moving into the elementary age, so.
Gives us some wiggle room.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is still the board expenses, legal fees. There's the assessment from the superintendent's office. There is an assessment for special ed, both for CSE, which is children under the age of 6, as well as the special ed for elementary high school students. So you've got those, that's pretty much it. That is a decrease over last year by 9.1%. And so with the information I've recently gotten from the state, which brings me to the tax calculator, again, your offsetting revenue is increased because of the $54,000 error that had impacted your taxes this year. So the offsetting revenue is higher than it would normally be, but your per pupil spending with this is $12,598. And so the state has given you your long-term weighted ADM, which is a weighted it's the students that you have, but then there's weights based on poverty, based on sparsity of the area, based on rural schools. So your count is 3350.52, which is higher than it was last year. And the yield is based on a overall, so the state is changing how we calculate the CLA into taxes this year. And they're giving they've taken 72% as an average CLA, and they've incorporated it into the yield this year, the homestead yield, which is showing at 8,553. So based on that, the unified tax rate is $1.47. However, then the state gives us a state adjusted CLA based on what your CLA was, which I think was close to 100% last year.
I think it was like 109 or something.
Yes, and so we take that 147 and you divide it by the 142, which is the state adjusted CLA. So based on that, your homestead rate is 1037. Now, because you are a part of the West River secondary, we have to split up the taxes a little bit differently. So half of your taxes are at that, will be at the lower rate. If you go to the bottom of this screen, I have last year's set up to do a comparison versus this year. So you take.
So that's the top box.
Exactly. The top one is
okay.
the 25. It shows over on the left-hand side. The bottom one is 26. So you take the unified tax rate and you split it based on what the state has told me is your split of secondary and elementary. And then you divide by the 142%, which gives you the post-CLA. So you'll see 55 cents as your post-CLA for the.
Are those just proxy numbers for the FY25?
Yeah, it was sort of like a calculation based on the information I had last year to do a comparison to this year. So post-CLA, the West River budget shows that it's 55 cents of the rate. Windham's section part is 63 cents for $1.19. The piece that is confusing, and I'm still getting used to this, is because West River is still trying to figure out their budget and planning on cutting some hopefully significant amounts out of their budget based on this new excess spending that has happened, excess spending threshold.
Yeah.
I apologize, I'm not explaining this very well, but the law has excess spending threshold coming back into play. And so if your tax per pupil spending is over $15,926 this year, that overage, that per pupil overage, is taxed at 118% over, and that gets added back into your pupil costs.
Minus inflation and a couple of other things.
It just goes right back in on the cost of the per pupil spending. So West River is facing that penalty due to the excess spending. So they're looking at cutting. So this tax rate that I have down here for Windham is the worst case scenario. It's the budget, the preliminary budget that I've presented to West River, that they plan on doing some cutting. So based on these estimated numbers from the state that have all come out.
But our tax rate's looking pretty with the excess spending.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
and in fact, overall, what I'm saying is your tax rate would be $1.19.
Yeah.
That's the high end. So it's showing a reduction of 22%.
Yeah.
So a lot of that is taking the building out of consideration. Part of that is the 54,000 coming off. So if I take the 54,000 off, just so you know, maybe going forward after this year, I can tell you that it would have raised it to $1.27 at the high end. So
which is still pretty good.
It's still a reduction of almost 17%.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want you to be aware, though, these are numbers from the state, but they're all gonna fluctuate a little bit in the next coming month as the state confirms the long-term weighted ADM for all the school districts across the state, as it confirms more specific CLA numbers. They gave us round numbers. There'll be a little bit, rounding up and this, that. So there'll be a little bit of a change, but Windham's looking good. You're very much below per pupil spending, so you don't have to worry about any penalties on anything. And you mentioned you had some questions. I don't know if you have any thoughts about changes to the budget.
I figured it out. It was that 54 that was throwing me off because I was just looking at the bottom line revenue and expenses. I'm like, why doesn't this not tie out?
Yes, that's exactly why.
Okay, yeah.
So it is lowering significantly your tax rate. So by another 54,000, which changed it probably 66 cents to not 10 cents, but it's 8 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So in the previous topsy-turvy world, when we operated our school, the more kids we had, the lower our taxes went.
Absolutely.
Let's say now that we are not operating the school, 10 new kids show up. Does that now, with this, the way the budget is balanced out and funding formulas work, do more kids increase our tax rate or lower our tax rate?
So that's an interesting question because you're paying tuition depending on the age, but if it's elementary, you're paying more tuition.
Correct.
However, the long-term weighted ADM takes a 2-year rolling average. So it helps minimize big dips or high, increases. Having those kids, you're getting back money from the state. If they're poverty, you're getting more money. You are a sparse area, so you're getting more money. So it's hard to do the analysis.
Right, I don't expect an exact, I'm just trying to get a feeling for how it's gonna work in the future.
More kids, especially as it is with secondary, and you being a part of West River, it is gonna help you because it increases without you paying more tuition out the door.
Okay.
And it increases the split on the lower tax rate.
And for elementary school kids, more elementary school tuition going out, is that gonna be sort of neutral in the way things are set up, or?
As it is right now, yes, if you, you're going public and private, so the rates are pretty much across the board. You've got some public schools that have a state that set the rate versus private, which has to be approved by the state. But most of them are within the same range. So again, you're probably getting a little bit, it's probably a wash.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have a cap to it.
Yeah,
the
right.
statewide average.
Yes.
Because when we were operating the school, the taxes could fluctuate wildly. A half dozen kids more or less just made a crazy difference in our
But you have
tax
to
rates.
remember though also is the education funding piece. This has been this is one of the things that the state is looking at, and how you can decrease your budget and still pay more in taxes depending on what all the other school districts in the state do, right? Everything, the education funding is one big bucket, and depending on what everybody's doing, so I do think this is gonna change in the future.
That's a given. You
Yeah,
know nothing.
yeah.
From one year to the next, you do not know what to
Yeah.
expect.
I never
I think
trust those
certainly
numbers.
with the weighting of the students, which started last year, or for this current school year, weighting the students, you've got some advantage because you do live in a very sparsely populated area. And, so you're seeing some numbers go up where you wouldn't have before.
Okay, thank you.
And before you guys move on too much further, is there much more to go?
I really, unless there's questions, I'm done, and I just want to know when you'd like to talk about approving your expenditure budget.
Okay, I just was noticing in my notes, because I flip-flopped so much today, aside from pay order 7, there was the stipend for me was something that came through, but it didn't come through as a pay order, and I'm not sure how we would.
Because you don't have any employees for Windham any longer, so the SU is paying that, and then it gets billed back to Windham. So it's part of the bill backs that you probably just approved.
So that's okay. So then
So
it's because it's
Windham-
asking for two different signatures. So that's why I wasn't sure, and I'm like, it wasn't coming up on the electronic signature.
Oh,
There's a separate one that's just stipend, and I'm like, I want to
that's
publicly
just for you.
just my stipend. So I don't
Yes.
want to just sign my stipend without motioning to approve the stipend.
I mean, the board gets paid because that's part of your budget that has been approved.
Yeah.
So I believe that individually, the SU, the payroll person communicates with you about getting paid, needing the paperwork to make sure you can get paid correctly, and then once you sign off on the stipend, you get paid through the SU.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
So
I just want to bring up something towards that. I keep getting emails about the stipend. I did not budget for it with Lori for my own stipend.
And I just told the payroll person that Dan had chose to not get paid for doing this, at least for the current year.
Yeah.
That's still correct.
And that was the previous year too.
Okay.
I just want to go back to the complaint real fast. In terms of personal gain and taking money from the taxpayers, I have not taken a stipend or a wage for this because this is not why I'm doing it.
Right.
It's not for kickbacks. This is a town I want to live in and I want to support it.
Thank you. And I didn't realize that you were not accepting your stipend. I didn't know how the stipends were coming through, and so I can sign that, and
yeah, please do.
We'll get that squared away. And then I know I had written down two names earlier. I have Maureen Bell and Michael. I'm gonna assume they have questions for you.
Sure.
So
Yep.
Maureen, you can go ahead first.
Actually, my question is not for Heidi. My hand has been up since the discussion about the minute taker. Can I ask my question about that, please?
Yes, you may.
Okay. So Howie said something that because of the way these meetings are recorded, that there are transcripts available and it's very easy to make the minutes from those transcripts. Why do you need a minute taker? I presume you're paying her. Why does that need to be done?
I mean, they're a little awkward to get through because a minute taker is going to take the meeting and go through it and condense it into something easily digestible. The transcript is every word and pause and that people say. If the town and everybody's happy with that, we could just copy and paste that from the video transcript. I would recommend that we go for the given.
Yeah, so a minute taker focuses
I would
on.
recommend you getting a real minute taker.
Yeah, on the. I mean, Matt can probably speak to this very well. The difference between.
As can I.
A transcript and an actual summary of events, motions, ideas.
But that is a
put
helpful
forth.
tool as well from the video, having had taken minutes to I didn't realize that there was a piece of that was accessible on BCTV, so that's pretty handy.
It's good in a
But,
pinch.
so yes, it is gonna cost money that has not been arranged yet. And I don't think it would be any cost difference to what is charged to other boards. So we'll know more about that by our next meeting as we have more conversation with Meredith. But at this point,
You already approved her.
right?
Correct.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, Michael Pelton.
Yeah, I was wondering if you might be able to talk a little bit more about the transportation piece. I was wondering if the new budget is including a stipend, if that's going to stay the same or be expanded. And then I'm also wondering about the transportation piece in terms of the bus. It seems like the bus has probably got a few more years left on it from my conversations with Cord the other day. But my question is really, if Windham Elementary School does not exist and we're issuing stipends to families to transport their students, why are we paying for transportation for middle school and high school when those expenses should be covered by the middle school / high school board? Now I see and understand that they contribute to our budget in a very small amount. However, I would point out that we are paying for a bus driver, the insurance related to that, whether, I don't know if the bus driver currently takes health insurance, but if they do, that would be one thing. There's also bus insurance. There's also the reinvestment of a bus every, let's say, somewhere between 5 and 10 years, $130,000. That's a lot of money. It adds up to probably $50,000 or $60,000 a year, at least, if you include the purchase of a new bus. I do understand and support the idea of providing transportation, but if we're gonna, I could see that $50,000 or $60,000, being spread out across the entirety of the grade school students, parents, for a stipend, and then not even having a bus and not having to worry about it. If the high school and middle school want to provide transportation, they have a much easier time with the when they start doing contract negotiations with, for instance, West River. They have a much better time than we would, for instance, if they're trying to negotiate for a better price. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, can we set that one for a second?
Yeah, that was, I believe, directed to us and to Lori. So it was a question as far as
Heidi.
Or Heidi. Sorry.
It's almost Lori.
I know.
So I guess the model around that of we take out the transportation and put it just fully into stipend. I guess that would be what, Stratton? Maybe?
So Stratton pays for busing for some of their kids to one of the school districts.
Okay.
So they do pay that. I just want to say that you would lose your transportation sub-grant from the state. So you would lose, it's not a lot.
Oh, that's only 7,800.
Well, no, the 7,800 is what West River pays you. The 11,500 is what the state goes through the SU and comes out to be sub-granted to you. So you would lose a total of 20,000. Now, that might not matter. West River pays for their own transportation of their kids. Dover pays for their transportation of their kids. I would suggest if you're interested, going to the West River Board and talking to them about that. Their contract, we do have it at an SU level because River Valley has to also pay for transportation for Wardsboro because they don't use the same transportation for Dover. And so there's multiple layers to that. But the contract that's currently in use goes through fiscal year 28. It's a multi-year contract. So I know there won't be any negotiating until after that with West River Transportation. I should, though, it's great that this was brought up because I want to just point out that there is $105,000 that you currently have in a capital expenditure account for transportation. And in the last week, there has been a lot of communication between business managers because there is a law on the books that actually says, and people haven't been paying attention to this because there has been no excess spending for the last 5-8 years or so, but if money is sitting in a capital expenditure account for over 5 years, if they want to enforce this law, that amount of money has to be put onto your annual budget and potentially put you over the excess spending threshold. So
wait. So yeah.
So they're saying it's a law that's been there for a while, and I'm not even saying that they're enforcing it right now. But all of a sudden, everybody is talking about it, which makes me think that the legislature's looking at everything. So
how would it not buy down the tax rate?
So if you use it to buy down and you use it, that's fine. But if it's sitting in an account and you have it for over 5 years, the amount that's sitting there for over 5 years and it hasn't been the entire 105 hasn't been there for the last 5 years.
It would be whatever
that was over 5 years.
Okay.
Would then be added to your bottom line, and then it would be put you over the threshold, and you would be taxed at 118% on that amount. So
So we would have to work down our educational spending with that in mind too.
So you could do a couple things. You could create an operational reserve account at your meeting
and just move it.
Which takes it off the table
for 5 years.
It's an operational reserve, so it would be it would be an operational tuition reserve,
Yeah, yeah.
okay? Or you buy a bus. So this is good timing to think about what your long-term plans are, because it would be great in the next year to buy a bus if that's what you think you're gonna do with it. Either way, you may just want to put on your warning to create an operational reserve, and then a separate warning would be to move your capital expenditures into your operational reserve for tuition reserves or other necessary and unanticipated expenses.
Yeah, whatever
Whatever the language
spikes.
is,
Yeah.
so that you could use it to buy a bus, but you could use it to pay for tuition, okay? So, Michael, it's great that you're bringing this up. The board should make a decision. You will lose some revenue coming into your budget if you don't want to transport your kids. I don't think you'd be able to jump into a contract with, currently with West River Transportation, because there is currently a contract through 28. But you could totally go to West River Board and see what, if they'd be willing to transport your kids. I don't know, but that's up to you guys.
Can I speak to this for a moment?
Hold on, I just
This is interesting.
got a few more hands that have come up for Heidi.
It's okay, call me Lori.
Slow
call
it
me
down,
Heidi,
it's
I'll answer
Heidi.
whatever.
So Crystal, your hand has been up for a while. Did you have a question for Heidi?
Not for Heidi. I just want to point out that if Windham decides to do away with their bus and go with West River, I don't think West River will send a bus up here. So you need to realize that for the secondary kids, they're going to need to go to the bottom of the hill to that bus stop. That is the nearest bus stop. So just putting that out there, that if we do away with our bus, the Windham kids will no longer get picked up at their houses like they currently do. And people will have to drive their kids to the bottom to meet the bus stop at the country store.
Yeah. Michael, did you have something? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Mike.
Your discussion about involved maybe buying a new bus. Have you considered buying an electric bus instead of a fossil fuel burning bus?
I think that there's been a lot of considerations on what type of vehicle. Would it be a bus? Would it make more sense to get the smaller vans, for various reasons. But I think also we're not quite there yet. The email that we had received from Core did state, it's in pretty good shape. So it's going to be a conversation piece that's going to continue. But I don't think as far as the avenue of when we get to, yes, we're made a decision, we will replace and get a new bus. That point would be, what are we looking at if we go to do that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I just want to know that you are thinking about it in the future of our world, and you're making a contribution to helping.
Yeah.
Is this, Michael, is this something maybe you could provide any information to the board? Is this any, can you provide any comparison or any resources for the board to educate ourselves? What is the comparison? What is the long-term, short-term benefits?
I can try and,
if you would.
Not at this moment.
No.
But I can try and, I can send you some information.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That would be wonderful. Thank you very much.
Good.
Russ, it looks like you're next.
I just want to say that what Heidi was discussing about moving the money from one fund to another fund, that has to be done at the annual school board meeting. It's not a choice of the school board as you sit there to make it. It has to be done by the public in a school board meeting in March or whatever it is. If it goes to a capital reserve fund or a tuition reserve fund, it's done by the electorate, not by the school board.
Yeah.
Yes, I just mentioned they have to put on a warning. It would definitely have to be reviewed to make sure it's done correctly.
Michael Pelton.
Yeah, I just wanted some clarification. I've heard some commentary regarding like the transportation of our kids to middle school and high school, and they are our kids. They're Windham kids, clearly. The question is, however, the elementary school, as in the district, the board that we have in front of us today, has no oversight over the middle school or the high school. So why would it be the elementary school district's job to transport middle school and high school students? Would it not be the job of the middle school / high school boards to determine the most appropriate transportation for the kids for that they oversee, to include our kids? Like, I guess my point is altogether is like, why does our elementary district, which does not operate a school, why are they responsible for transporting middle school and high school kids? Would that not fall under the district who is in charge of those students and their transportation and education?
That's a great question. I do not have an answer for that.
That's sort of where I'm going. Like, you're talking about like, oh, well, maybe in 28 we can renegotiate and then we sign on with them. It's not, I don't think it's us signing on with them. It's them taking ownership of the students that they're overseeing. Our elementary school, from my perspective, our elementary school board should not be overseeing the transportation of those students. And if that were the case, we could have a stipend. It could be a healthy stipend for our elementary students, and not operate a bus, and conceivably save us $50,000 or $60,000 that would normally be shoehorned for transportation. That would reduce our budget considerably, even if we wanted to have a healthy stipend. And I'm assuming that in the budget, there is a stipend in this budget.
There's a $5,000 amount of money based on what we had. Let me go down a little bit to the 27. Yeah, it's 5,000. I think you had currently 4,452. Other professional services is where we threw it under there.
Okay, I was just wondering about
Thank
that.
you.
Yep.
Yes. Could I ask the board to ask Heidi and or whomever might be appropriate to ask under whose authority it is to provide transportation for middle school and high school students?
Sure, I'll be happy to have Bob look into it. You know, I'm not sure transportation is even mandatory in the state of Vermont. And so that might be where we end up, but I'm happy to have Bob look into that.
So, and just in case it's, is Bob still on or did he?
No, I think he
Yeah,
left.
Okay, that's what I was trying to. So, I guess the board will direct you to ask Bob, and then that way
We'll
it's
look
coming
into
from us.
the
so
requirement of transportation for the middle school and high school kids, secondary.
that is, thank you very much, Heidi.
I'm wondering if we could perhaps see an alternate budget that has what Michael is suggesting,
Can I say something about the school bus situation?
a very healthy transportation stipend. Like what would that look like if we were able to pass the buck for the middle school and high schoolers, as well as provide that stipend for elementary? What would that maybe, like, how would it shift all the numbers? How would we lose revenue but also gain here?
Yeah, I guess I'd be looking for you to give me a number that you'd want a stipend to be. Like, I don't want to choose an arbitrary number. I would want the board to direct what you're thinking.
You're saying Stratton doesn't have
Stratton doesn't do
still-
stipends any longer. They pay for transportation through BRSU, and so there's one bus that picks up and takes kids in a certain direction. That's all Stratton pays at this point in time.
Are you familiar with any other models?
None that do this, no.
No.
Can I say something?
Yes,
Yeah.
how you want to?
I mean, our situation with the school bus evolved over a long period of time. We've evolved in this situation. And the reason that we've always purchased our school bus, owned our own school bus, and had a school bus driver that lives in town is because we are far away from any bus depot. So by having the bus living in the town and the bus driver living in the town, we can get our kids to school dependably, to high school, to whatever elementary school we're sending them to. If we go to a model where we're depending upon like a bus company, it's gonna cost us a fortune, because that bus driver now has to leave the depot in Keene at 4 o'clock in the morning to make it all the way up the hill to make his first pickup. Whereas by having the school bus here and the school bus driver in town, Court can roll out of bed at 6:30 and jump in the bus and make the pickups. So, I mean, as a school board, I think we need to be looking out for our kids first of all. We don't know how the funding is going to work. The state changes it every year and makes it crazier and crazier and crazier. But now that we don't have a school, the least thing we can offer to our citizens for all the school tax they're paying is a dependable way to get their kids to some school.
Right.
So that's where, when we have our, it's a pain in the ass and it may cost us a little bit more money. But by operating our own school bus, we can get our kids to school dependably.
It does get a little bit, I mean, I foresee when you look at being equitable, right, then if we're providing transportation, we technically don't have to provide, right? And that's the point of it, is because it is important and we want to do that. But now that it's choice, how are we picking favoritism of who we provide transportation to? It could get complicated.
The Vermont Constitution is very clear. A competent number of schools ought to be provided for the convenient instruction of youth. So we're not providing a school anymore for the convenient instruction of youth. The least thing we can do is provide the convenient part. Okay, if we provide parents no convenience and no school, we are in violation of the Vermont Constitution.
Yeah. True.
I think there's just more conversation to have here. Like, I take your point that we'd have to pick a number around that, and what would that look like, and what about the difference between this school and distance, and there's a lot to chew on there.
And I do think that you are, it's worth Bob looking into it. It's worth maybe a board conversation with the West River Board. But in the end, I know one of the things that we're struggling with, the West River is struggling with the bus company, is they don't even have enough bus drivers. And so what happens if you do, Michael's suggestion, you rely on West River, but then they can't find a bus driver, so then there's just no transportation. It could potentially happen because there's no bus drivers willing to drive for after-school sports most of the time, and there's no other bus companies in the area. And this is a problem across the state. I've seen it, a lot of business managers are complaining and trying to find out what everybody else is doing because they're looking for bids on contracts and there's just no competition. There's not enough bus drivers. So it's an issue that you really need to maybe look at all the different aspects of it to make a decision, and maybe you don't make a decision for this, but going into next year, or maybe you do, but it may be a longer process than you think.
Regardless, we need to move that money.
Yes, but it's not like you can't keep it for what you need it.
It could still be available for multiple uses.
But I would definitely put that on the warning for your vote.
Definitely agree with that.
All right, so I think we've hit every item on the agenda.
We have two
hands being raised.
Two last hands.
Crystal Corview.
So I want to point out again to Michael's comment, it is not a law to transport kids in Vermont state. So if Windham does get rid of their bus, the people in town are going to be required to drive the 3 to 5 miles to the bottom of the hill to that bus stop. There are many children in the West River District, and I know because they're my friends, that their kids have to catch a bus 2 miles away from their house. It's not a problem for me because I drive my kids, but there are a lot of people in town that it will be a problem for.
I agree. Thank you, Crystal. Michael?
Michael, you got a magic number for us?
I don't know about a magic number, but I think it's fair to say that you have a few years left on the bus. I also think that it's fair to say that Cord enjoys driving the bus. I don't know how many more years he's willing and able to drive the bus, but it is definitely a very big challenge finding a bus driver. And I think that if he were to choose to step back and not drive the bus, it would be a huge challenge finding somebody that you could afford to pay to drive the bus. It's a split schedule. It's really challenging if you're trying to do other things. I know because I did substitute bus driving for Cord for a while. I know it's been a real challenge trying to find substitute bus drivers for when Cord needs to go deal with his personal things periodically. I just think it's something that we need to consider and think about. And I do understand that it is very convenient, and historically Windham has purchased a bus. I do also feel like with the budget in mind, it is important for the elementary school board to consider that they are not responsible for the transportation of the middle school and high school. And if the middle school and high school wish to provide transportation, that would be fantastic. And if they don't wish to provide transportation, then perhaps they need to look at how they are reimbursing the town of Windham, aka the Windham Elementary School District, for those services. Because right now, the elementary school board is providing those services. Are we being fairly and equitably reimbursed for our travel expense? Does it equate to something similar to what West River is getting for mileage, etc., on a daily basis? I don't know if they do it per student or how many stops or what their deal is, but I think that there's something there. They are responsible for the transportation. If they would like to help us as a town, I think that would be fantastic. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Okay.
What happened with I'm sorry, I've been out. What happened with transportation stipends? Have we approved that?
Oh, so that was something we had discussed that we wouldn't do potentially till the end of the year, but I don't think we took any action on it because that was concerning as far as if a family applied in the beginning of the year for the stipend, but then had a change in their student decided to go someplace else and then they wouldn't technically have needed the stipend, we would have already paid it out. So it would make more sense to do it at the end of the year when it's clear that the student has been there and been utilizing and needing the stipend for the full year and like meet the criteria. And we were just gonna need to talk about that and figure out if that made more sense. Because as a parent, I mean, I would like clearly at the beginning of the year because you're gonna need it. That's kind of makes more sense to me. But I also saw the part of, well, what if there is, it's crazy times, change happens. So do you make a payout to somebody and then it's not necessarily, like how does that work? Does it get more convoluted with that? So
I think it makes sense end of year, and it sucks because it's the potential for arbitrage, and someone just taking the check and running is too real. So I'd probably advocate for end of year.
End of school year. So I don't know if we want to motion to that or.
What were the
So currently there is a stipend available for families that do not take transportation. They're sending their children, say, private school, and they can apply for that. And then if they apply for it, we're trying to figure out when they can get that funding. Like how soon can we give it to them? And it's seemingly in talking back and forth with the SU.
How much money are we talking about?
Oh, budgeted we have 5,000. I'm not sure how many.
But for each individual person.
No, it would be 1,000 per calendar or per fiscal year per family.
1,000 per family. Per fiscal year.
Yeah.
So, not a ton.
Yeah,
but better than nothing.
Yeah, it was a rough number for this is their first year. Let's offer something to the families that are doing it.
We haven't paid it yet.
No, but the idea would we would do it at the end of the year because if someone
Like in the springtime?
well, or yeah, exactly. When school year ends,
I would think could we split it in two, do like half now and half in the springtime? Because now would be, I know a lot of families.
I
really
know, I hear
would
ya.
Appreciate.
I think it's a good idea.
No, what are your thoughts on that, Heidi?
Whatever the board wants us to
Yeah,
do, we'll
let's-
do.
let's split
Right
it
now,
up.
there's only one family who actually filled out all the paperwork that they needed to do. There was someone else who applied, but when responded to that they needed to submit some other stuff, they have not done that, so.
Okay.
Whatever you want.
I say half now and half at the end of the school year.
No, I like that idea. Yeah.
So we'll move to, for the current situation with the stipend reimbursement, to issue half the payment to the interested person who's registered for now.
Yeah, anybody.
And then they will receive a second,
assuming they stay.
assuming they stay
Yeah.
at the,
And Chris,
Spring.
I heard you were. She's not even on. Yeah. If you're driving and not using the bus, then you should sign up for it. There's budget for it, and that's why we set it up.
but she's driving because it's not that she can't use the bus.
Well, I mean that's
So-
not the point. If you're driving your kid, regardless of whether or not you could use the bus or not, there's no reason that you can't apply for. a
Yeah, I
stipend.
don't think that that's
Not
the
if she's
same
going
because,
to Townsend.
what's that?
Not if she's going to Townsend.
Yeah, if the end location is the same as where the bus is taking them and they have to take the bus, if you're
Did we
not
did we
taking
write
those.
that into the stipend?
It
language?
says so.
I mean,
I just-
I hear you, but I'm just wondering.
Yeah, because I mean, the bus itself is, again, above and beyond what we're required to be doing. So we're trying to keep it because it makes sense. We shouldn't be putting families through that. But it's also not really fair to anybody who's chosen elsewhere. So
Okay,
this
so
was
it'd
kind
have
of
to
the
be
middle.
for the private school.
Yeah, because otherwise
Kids.
that's going to get wiped out with people who go, I slept late and I didn't take the bus today. So
That makes sense.
yeah.
Okay.
That's just my thought, but it would make it, I mean, we can always revisit this and adapt it because we can. But I think so right now.
Do we have any?
What do you
To
want?
receive a stipend for transporting your student to a school in which the Windham bus
Okay.
does not deliver to.
Perfect.
Okay, so it does
Okay.
say that in there.
Oh,
So,
there you go.
so I will move to,
Michael Pelton. I was saying.
yeah, you're at the wait, Michael, I'm in the middle of motion. So I will move to, approve the stipend payments, for 2 payments.
Yeah, 2 payments.
Half.
First half. And
Half
second.
would be typically the beginning of the year, but we didn't do that, so now, and then the other half will be.
I think
at the
now
end
is a
of
good time for
Yeah.
the first half because they've
Yeah.
driven for half of the
Exactly.
year.
December,
so I
December
think
1st
yeah.
would be.
Oh, even better.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're doing a great
so, thanks. So, move to the stipends. Go for December and then in June.
December and June.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Awesome. Okay, Michael Pelton.
When you're talking about stipend and people who could take the bus or or choose not to take the bus, I think that there is some consideration that might come into the conversation based on the student's ability and I guess the student's ability to take the bus successfully. I know that it's considerably farther to Townsend in comparison to Windham, for instance. And I know that one of my children would have a hard time taking a bus to Townsend if I chose to bring my child there. So I would be forced, based on that child's needs, to take them to Townsend via car. So I think that there should be some sort of consideration that thinks about the possibility that a child might not be able to be successful on a bus. I don't know how that would look in terms of wording or anything like that, but I think it's something you should think about and consider. Thanks.
I mean, I think within reason, we're a very reasonable board. If there's a family that is facing that situation, they could totally reach out and we could figure something out.
Yeah, so some type of exception rule or something at our discretion.
At some point, you might want to come up with a policy.
Yeah, I agree
Start
with
putting
that.
a wording together of how you'd like to do that.
I think that's where this is leading.
Yeah.
Yep. So, excellent. Who would like to, would anybody like to do the honors?
Move to adjourn.
All right. It is 17:42 or 5:42, and the meeting has been adjourned. Thank you all very much for coming.
Can I make a comment?
Oh, you can go, but yeah, we just adjourned, but
Oh.
what was your comment?
There's a post-meeting comment. We're all here.
Well, I wanted to address everyone.
Oh, I apologize. Are you still recording there, Brian?
Yeah, we're still on.
Okay, go ahead, Michael.
I just wondered why the folks making angry comments tonight are afraid to show their faces when they make those angry comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So with that, our next meeting will be on Thursday, January 9th. And we'll also likely be posting something with a special meeting for an executive session with the attorney. So meeting's been adjourned.
I'm sorry to be